The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall continue to follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. What's happening? Benton here on what's this? US 281 in Texas, I believe, or about to be. Rolling out of a little truck stop / gas station. Getting the old shift started. Shout out to the replay crew. There's a few of you left. The countdown to 0. Subscriber exodus. It'll go up by 10 or so, and then it goes back down. I think 777 subscribers last I checked. Many people now seem to believe that their channels are persecuted by YouTube and the algorithms. My view is that nobody is, quote, held back. It's that the content and the videos and the live streams are either pushed out or they're not pushed out. There's a car behind us, of course. Something about truck driving on deserted roads at 3 in the morning. It's virtually a guarantee that someone will immediately see the big rig start to roll and get excited and seize the opportunity to jump right behind. If only perhaps to experience sensations of the anxieties and annoyance of being stuck, air quotes, behind a big rig. It's a certain phenomenon. And it's always a curious timing. Like, how is this happening? Why are we doing this? Presumably, if they were that close to jump right onto my tail as we exited the truck stop, couldn't they have potentially been with it enough to... All right, shook them loose. But then, action begets action. As a spontaneous performer and a catalyst, within my air quotes life, slow process of death, oftentimes other folks who are involved in inaction at a state of rest or a not moving or engaged, upon my movement and engagement, they then go into motion and become engaged. Although that is certainly part of the so-called human experience. I believe most folks function on that level to some degree, seemingly. Interesting observing human behavior in that regard. Back to nothing happening out here. Also observing traffic patterns. Yesterday, I drove the last probably 2 hours to get to the truck stop. And being from Arkansas, 2-lane highways, and then maybe sometimes there's a passing zone for a mile or two. typically, some days certainly always 55 at a maximum. Well, a similar highway in Texas is going to be 60, 75, or even 80, but yeah, a lot of them are 75 miles an hour. And Texans tend to last, like right now, this is 70, this is the 2-lane highway 70, speed limit is 70. And for the last 2 hours yesterday, although it was raining, I could have swore I was driving in Arkansas. It's just slow driving, which I attribute, because remember, culturally, it's going to mostly be people hauling ass. You know, why else is the speed limit 75? The people must desire that on some level. And being in the country doesn't account for it. And I've driven in Texas a lot. So it's a bit strange observing these dynamics yesterday. And a simple matter to, you know, realistically, all I can do is slow down myself and stay away. And then there were periods of time when people would speed up and drive more like a normal Texan, only to invariably slow down again, seemingly for no reason. Curious indeed. And then this one pickup truck, I had a pickup truck in front of me, and then a car in front of that pickup truck, and they would get fairly far ahead of me at times, and there would be passing zones. But the thing about a big rig is, with the hills and the, you know, governed to 71 miles an hour and all of this, and the weight of the rig, you know, even if I put my foot all the way to the floor, it was physically impossible. Even if I caught up, it was impossible to pass those passing zones. So finally, one of the passing zones opened up, and I knew I would be able to pass. And the pickup truck that was had no problem following the car as they both sped up, slowed down, sped up, slowed down for about 20 miles or more. The moment I got up ahead of steam, hit the passing lane, the instant that happened, the pickup truck passed the car, motivated one's own delays, you know, by actions of another person. And then the nature of the human, not necessarily as a being, but the nature of the human as a slave, but not even a slave. I don't think, because slave to me sort of implies to be captured against one's will, and, you know, impressed into slavery or like military service. So this seems to be the being is doing that to themselves. Is that slavery then? I'm not convinced of that. That they've been captured. Now, some of the spark divinity, Nancy Pelosi's spark divinity, if I think about it in the context of the child as spiritually perfected and innocent, and then being, like we talked about yesterday, being fed to the beast from, you know, day one, and then, you know, at a certain point continuing to feed oneself to the beast system over and over. And then also the irrationality around, because certainly they would understand that they've gone through numerous passing zones. This drive past, now they're in charge. Now they're going to need to be caught something. So is this not an acknowledgement of many individuals' desire is to follow, right? It's to be in the following dominance, you know, cut your path in the world boldly, you know, and without apologies, as if each individual is going to go out there and compete and sort of beat the realm and beat the opposition into submission. Well, most folks, that's not their modus operandi. Now, regardless of how they will behave and what they will give lip service to, if oh, absolutely not. I don't want to be. Anybody who has an aptitude, it's sort of assumed that, well, of course they would want to advance in their career. Hierarchy of to be led. Unfortunately, we were disconnected for some time. I was just getting rolling too. Oh well. AT&T seems to be better there, so we're on the so-called Dark Star, U.S. Mobile Dark Star instead of Verizon. Might need to switch back to Verizon. See how she goes. That some of what I'm espousing here, I've certainly heard on other prominent channels or on prominent channels in the so-called truth community. And certainly that was not the first place I heard some of these ideas, but some of the, if anybody listens to this, I mean, at this point, there is a benefit to the tiny, there's something of a freedom in that. It's less necessary to sort of predict, project my own consciousness sort of into the space of the listener. Well, when there's, as the numbers dwindle down to effectively no listeners, pretty soon, what's the difference? Am I on the wrong phone? I am on the wrong phone. What a bozo. All right, I don't know if we're back or not, but we switched over to Verizon. We'll see if that's any better. And I just realized I'm on the wrong phone. I meant to be hot-spotted, so. Oh well. Too many phones. Might have started the shift a little too early here. Only time will tell, but my appointment's for 8. This says I'm going to get there at 7, actually 6:53. LOL trip planning. Yeah, probably should have waited another 30 minutes. And delivering in San Antonio at 8 a.m. to a place that is not designed to facilitate 18-wheelers. Actually, it would be, except for some reason there's been curbing. There's a curb and a little bit of grass, I guess probably to separate, like a parking area for cars. But if that wasn't there, there would be enough room to back into the dock. But and then unfortunately, we've had the existence of owner-operators who've historically earned a decent living, enough of a living that eventually they end up being in trucking for 30 years. And over the 30 years, of course, the size of the rig, the length of the trailer grows and grows and grows, so that, most of the people that deliver these loads are absolute experts. I mean, as long as the rig physically fits into the area, they can do anything they want with it. half an inch on every side of that rig. If it can physically be backed in there, they can physically back it in there, which has nothing to do with my ability to back it in there, none whatsoever. And so what happens to me is the spiritual attacks and gaslighting of, oh, well, all these other people have done it. It's like, yeah, I'm here now. Well, what does what they've done have to do with what I've done? And it reminds me of, and here's the hilarious part is the people that are there want to just tell me how to do it. And when I had that load refused in Connecticut, the highest ranking people at that local business were affable. I think they were drunk. I think the old man was drunk, but that's okay. But I just had a pleasant conversation with him where I said, you know, the fact that these 30 plus year owner operators can come in here and in one try back this thing in here, it really has nothing to do with what I'm going to do. And I said, you know, I'll give you an example. You know, where I'm from, and maybe this is still the case, all high school kids are given a multiple choice test called the ASVAB for military entrance, the Armed Services Vocational Assessment Battery. And I was tested in the 99th percentile. And the fact is, I could explain to somebody how to score in the 99th percentile. Do you think they could then go score in the 99th percentile? Well, of course not. That would be ridiculous. But really what you're asking me to do is to be able to perform at the level of somebody who's earned their living as a so-called professional driver and a business, you know, operating their own business for 30 plus years. And I've done it for less than 4 years total. Like, this is insane, right? And then people want to just tell me how to do it. And it's like, well, yeah, if I could describe to you how to score the 99th percentile on a test, well, then that would not be an accomplishment. It would not be indicative of talent. And the reality is there's some level of talent, even if, yeah, anybody who drives a truck for 30 years presumably would get to that level. Well, again, that has nothing to do with me. I'm here. It has nothing whatsoever to do with what I'm doing. So why can't we adjust our expectations to the skill level of the person that's performing the thing, right? And, you know, with that load that was refused, my company wanted me to, and I knew they weren't going to do this, but because the first time that the employees do this, they will then be expected to do it forever. But it's like, we'll ask them, could they break down the pallets and just manually unload the truck? And, you know, from their perspective, that's absolutely ridiculous. And it doesn't even compute, which I understand. But so much so they're not even really willing to consider it. And from my perspective, it's like, yeah, this is completely ridiculous that I'm expected to do this thing on this property. Meanwhile, you know, if they had left me alone for an entire hour or 45 minutes, you know, probably I could have done it in a vacuum, but I can't do it with hypervigilance. And every time I look in my mirror, there's somebody on a dock waving their arms around and wanting to. Then I pull the brakes to get out and look, and now we have to talk about it. And now they want to give me verbal instructions. And they can't not do that because, again, whether they know it or not, it's a spirit. They're spiritually attacking me in that moment. You know, whether they understand that they themselves are infested with demonic forces or not. And yeah, eventually would I have chosen to blindside in? Perhaps. You know, I'm not doing that until I've proven to myself that it's just not possible to do it on a conventional backing, right? Whereas the owner-operator, it's neither here nor there. If they need to blindside, they just set up and blindside. For me, can I do a blindside back? Yeah, I'm going to get out 20 times. I'm probably going to need to set up 3 different times because I'm going to blow my setup and have to just completely start over and reset. And if the people at the dock are used to seeing 30-plus year owner-operators pull up and nail it on the first try, it's too incongruous for them to observe me not being able to do it visually in the way that they're used to seeing it, right? The moment I deviate in my performance from what they're used to seeing, they're going to want to intervene, start waving their arms around and take over and start giving instructions, when most of them have never backed up. They've only ever watched big rigs be backed up. It's like, okay, well, we've all had multiple choice tests in school, right? We've all, we know how to read and write the English language. We've all been to school. Well, let me explain to you how to score in the 99th percentile on this test. And then let's give you the test and see what happens, right? That's insane. And if I suggested that, people would be like, what the fuck are you talking about? And, you know, the fact that people won't understand what I'm talking about, that proves that it's a spiritual attack, because, and I knew they weren't going to break down the pallets and unload the truck that way. However, for them to even refuse to see, like, they basically pretended like they didn't know what I was talking about. Yeah, I'm confused by this thing up more or less in one shot. So if I'm a human being, which I'm not a human being, but in the context of a human experience, you know, the fact that I, from my perspective, find something confusing and that they, from their perspective, find something confusing, isn't that the middle ground? Couldn't that be the common ground? And I would assert that the fact that it's not common ground, you know, is representative of spiritual attack and authoritarianism. No, we tell you what to do and you do it. We're the people at the dock. We wave our arms around. Oh, when somebody who's new to, and they just perceive, oh, this is a new truck driver who's not yet good at truck driving. That's their perception. So, oh, when that happens, we wave our arms around and tell him how to do it. And then that driver either crashes into something or they don't. Meanwhile, what's also not acknowledged is that these folks want, whether they know it or not, they want to be able to pull their phone out, get a recording of the driver crashing into something so that they can put it on their social media and get likes and shares. Whether they know that or not, they want to see happen. So if they wave their arms around and give a bunch of verbal instructions, and then before I could even start trying to back in, a black out here. Exactly. Whereas the owner-operator pulls up, and within 5 minutes, he's already bumping the dock. So just the amount of time and hearing me set the brakes and get out and look and set the brakes and get out and look, well, now they know, okay, we got a live one. See, we got a live one. And then the major thing that makes me such an excellent, safe truck driver when I'm going forward, the hypervigilance. Every time I look in the mirror, if there's a human being waving their arms around, that's all I can pay attention to. Now, yeah, I can, if I know what I'm doing, I can force myself to tune them out and to do it anyway. But if I'm then having to use my cognition and my mental powers to do a bunch of on-the-fly calculations and simultaneously to stay late, which of course they didn't. Number two, it's fake, right? This idea that, oh, well, now they're annoyed and inconvenienced because of me. No, I don't believe that for a second. And then to apply that pressure, right? And that is the predatory nature of the realm, to seek to apply to another person and then to watch them. And whereas if we actually are in a hurry and we actually want it done, and I say, hey, I understand that I do this in an unconventional manner, but the quickest way for me to do this is for everybody to go away. Do not intervene. Let me do my thing, and that will be the quickest. So any and all interventions, it's going to take longer. Now, what we saw was that at the convention center in New Orleans, when people actually, it was getting towards the end of the day and people actually wanted to go home but weren't going to be able to go home until the thing was done, eventually after they wasted about 20 minutes of everybody's time, I finally got to talk to enough people and everybody just left me the fuck alone, and then within about 15 minutes I bumped the dock, which is okay. If everybody had left me alone for 15 minutes, it would have taken me 15 minutes, which is a reasonable amount of time. It's on the higher end of the amount of time that a truck driver will take, but it's not unreasonable for me to take 15 minutes. That's not unreasonable. And then why do people have to do this to each other? Right? Because it's adversarial, but they pretend like it's teamwork. And here's where I knew I was being spiritually attacked in Connecticut, was because maybe I was about to get the thing backed in, and some local person in a pickup truck drove at the dock at about 40 miles an hour. And this is like behind a building somewhere, and just went around me, slammed on its brakes, and quickly backed into the dock. Right. And so then that caused me to just be like, this is crazy, because now I got to wait on him, which is fine, except this is very unsafe, and so because he's now put his pickup into the area that I can't even see where the ass of my trailer is. So if somehow I hadn't noticed all of this, now I'm just going to back into his pickup. And so I go into the building at that point, and I'm just letting everybody know, like, hey, this is not safe, like what's happening here. And since society pretends to care about safety, I can always bring it back to safety, right? And so one of the more aggressive older guy, probably close to my age, that worked on the dock, now he wants to start telling me how to do my job. And my thing is just, yeah, I'm happy to have a conversation, but if it's not a two-way conversation, I just basically go, well, no CDL, no opinion. I'm just like, do you have a CDL? No. Okay, well, and of course they don't want to answer. Eventually I make him answer. I'm like, well, then, no offense, but I'm not listening to you. If you had a CDL, yeah, I would listen to you. Why would I listen to somebody who has no experience doing the thing I'm doing? Like, that doesn't even make sense. But then also it was like, hey, if he's going to be an authoritarian to me, I'll be an authoritarian to him. I'll force him to acknowledge that safety is the most important thing. Well, and I'm like, well, surely we can all agree that safety is of the utmost importance. He refused to agree, right? He just tried to wave me off, so I just waved him off. So now it's two people behaving in a dictatorial, authoritarian fashion, right? And hilariously, he's like, yeah, I was trying to tell you. And I said, I was trying to tell you. And he just kind of stopped and sort of grinned at me, because he realized that, on some level I had outmaneuvered him. Because he was like, yeah, I was just trying to, almost like he's trying to help me. He's like, yeah, I was trying to tell you. I said, exactly. And I was trying to tell you. Because that's a two-way street. If he can tell me, I can tell him. But again, with an authoritarian populace, and the way we know it's an authoritarian populace is because that's the only way to have an authoritarian government. In his mind, he has the status and he has the ability to boss me around, and I'm supposed to just accept it, right? I'm supposed to just accept it. Which maybe I will, maybe I won't. Isn't that, if we're all free, isn't that my choice to go along with being bossed around or not? So this idea that America is founded on principles of freedom, well, I don't know, I wasn't there, but whether it was or not, the current situation is not freedom, because there's no way to exist within society and to not be subjected to authoritarianism and being bossed around. And even the idea of being a productive member of society, that is authoritarianism. People are saying, hey, you must pull yourself up by your bootstraps and you must contribute to society. So what do you mean? So you're telling me I'm free to do as I'm told. I'm free as long as what I choose to do is in the context of producing for society. And now we have corporations that are legal persons with constitutional rights in the courts. And, you know, unless I go out here and make my own business or find my own way or become some level of a criminal, then it's okay, off to corporate slavery. And oh, okay, well, acquiesce to allowing a corporation to boss me around. Then society will accept me at the level of status quo, social contract, and conformity to peer groups. What I'm saying is, yes, as a being, you know, in this form, having these experiences, I might freely choose to do all of that, but only with an acknowledgement that if I want to go live next to a dumpster in back of a 7-Eleven, that's my choice. And if the government and Moloch's machine and these various systems says that I get food stamps or Section 8 or whatever programs are available, how can I ever be blamed for signing up for what the system says I'm entitled to, while simultaneously those same systems, Benito Mussolini's helicopter hand, those are the same systems that people are telling me I need to sign myself up for, whereby I slave away for corporations and pay federal income tax and state tax, and you know, my whatever I spend out of my wages goes to also pay various taxes. And if I'm a homeowner, you know, you got property tax. So I'm supposed to sign, I'm by default signed up to all of that if I acquiesce and go along with freely choosing to go into those systems. But what if I freely choose to go live by the dumpster and sleep outside? Oh, well, now it's somehow a moral imperative to not take the food stamps, to not accept whatever the system says that people get those things. Oh, well, but no, that was Biden's poopy diaper that gave all these people food stamps. Well, okay, isn't it the government's job to not let people sign up for food stamps then? Isn't it their job? How's it my job to know in a vacuum or just, and I'm beginning to abuse that phrase, but, you know, hypothetically, isn't it for me to just go do what the system tells me to do? The system, I don't know if y'all know this, the system tells people to go sign up for food stamps. The system does that. It's not hat in hand, oh, now the person's just chosen to go down there to social services, and oh, well, their belly's rumbling and they haven't eaten in days, and now they're just asking like, hey, can I get a bite to eat? And then they get put on food stamps. The system, because these systems grow to a size to continuously perpetuate themselves by growing larger and larger and larger over time. So, of course, when there's SNAP benefits, of course, that only gets bigger over time. Of course it does. Because when have we ever observed government systems and bureaucracies, once established, when do they fail to grow larger over time? That's what they do, folks, observably. So, I don't know if people are aware that individuals are told to go sign up for this. So if Benton understands that he's in America and that the West Coast, it's way more likely to give somebody like me food stamps, and I know that Arkansas is only if it's an actual fucking financial crisis will they give somebody like me food stamps, and then only for 3 months at a time, right? While simultaneously we all pretend like it's my tax dollars that pay for all of this. Oh, okay, so that working on a W-2 from age 15 to age, whatever, uninterrupted, that counts for nothing. Oh, well, you're just supposed to do that. Oh, but you're not supposed to be on food stamp. Okay, well, sure. These are all opinions, right? Because my opinion is maybe society should be operated in such a way that, everyone who's willing to work a job, who's worked a certain number of times, if I've worked 20 years on a W-2, why shouldn't I be able to access socialism at a level of a social safety net? Why do I need to do 20 years with one employer to get a pension? The IRS knows I worked 20 plus years on W-2s. Why does it matter that it was for various companies? See, that it's already a scam. Why does it matter? See, why shouldn't I be taken care of? I did my contributing to society. So now, is society willing to recognize, oh, no, we need the being to slave away indefinitely into old age unless they get a pension, unless they get put on disability, unless they go into the military and get put on military disability, unless they have a car crash and get a structured settlement, unless they start their own business and manage to get, while not what I would call wealthy, while they gather enough resources to at least live out their days with a retirement. So yeah, if all of that happens, it's fine to just take it to the house and kick it. But unless those conditions are met, it's now, it's a moral failing. So off to the salt mines you go, off to the prison camp, off to the work camp with you. That's just morally wrong. In my world, that's just wrong. Why can't society say, hey, once the worker has put in this amount of work, now they're kissed into and blessed into a system that if they want to live a meager existence where they know they're going to have 3 hots and a cot, basically, but not have to be in jail, why shouldn't that be available? See, because in a global structure, it's the corporations of America supposedly competing against the corporations of other nations. And in order to do that, all these nations' populaces, they have to work harder and harder and harder and longer hours and for more years to always be more efficient. Because rich people must get richer every new moment into perpetuity, because that is the function of the economy. So if I, as a being, am able to evolve my own consciousness to a level to be able to understand and comprehend and verbalize and explain all of this, why in the world would I still be expected to go along with what I know I can make the case for is de facto abject slavery, when I'm still free to, if I know how to do it without going to jail, because now that the court decision has been handed down where homelessness can be criminalized, right? As long as I have the skills to live by next to the dumpster outside the 7-Eleven without going to jail, right? Why am I not free to do that? And I'm not even saying that that's desirable or I would choose that. I'm saying, why is that? How come that's not even available? Well, that's an acknowledgement that the system needs my slave labor. The system depends upon my slave labor. Now, the moment the individual, and this is Animal Farm, this is a version of Orwell's Animal Farm. The moment that society and the individuals within society acknowledge this, well, now they can't pretend like, well, Benton's 20 to 25 years of W-2 employment should count for something. Now they're not able to pretend like, oh, well, Benton, because you didn't know to do it in a way to get a pension, you've got to wait to retirement age. Meanwhile, what will be left of security? We all know by the time I get to the Social Security age, that won't be enough to live on anyway. So what's the fucking difference? And now Gen Z's more or less being told, hey, y'all got to figure out how to master investing well enough to invest your entire lives and let Wall Street have a shot at your net worth. And if you manage to make it through that minefield of, again, the adversarial and predatory aspects of the realm, if you manage to not have Wall Street steal your fucking wealth, which it isn't even wealth, but steal your retirement, then you get to retire. It's like, what are you talking about? On some level, I would rather just live next to the dumpster outside of the 7-Eleven. That seems a lot less nightmarish to me. And then, as we know, the realm and the people in the realm will only ever seek to gaslight and attack. And the thing is, the gaslighting and the spiritual attacks, they can't ever be effective. The only way that works is if the individual is willing to internalize those notions. When the being grows to a certain level of consciousness and understands that it's actually a violation in the context of a spiritual war to acquiesce to to internalize such attacks. I looked a certain type of way to my trucking company because I was new on the job. Well, guess what? My trucking company looks at some are, quote, good. They're all bad. There's no such thing as a good trucking company. The driver picks his or her poison. So what's the fucking difference anyway? And this is not what seems like a moral hazard. It's built into the system that on some level they know that I ain't shit and I know that they ain't shit. But guess what? There's a limited amount of the resource of somebody that can drive a truck, and there's a limited number of trucking companies who are willing to employ a driver with my record, meaning I don't have the employment record that they want, then I'm a strange, odd person who chooses to adopt an unconventional death style. Let's not call it a lifestyle. You know, my performance, my idiosyncratic and eccentric performance. However, the climate has changed to where now these companies have to figure out how can we attract and retain drivers who have clean records and who are simultaneously, what does the driver with the clean record represent? He's unlikely to get tickets, and he's unlikely to damage the equipment, and he's unlikely to, they're making him blindside back in at a facility that's building. And so why are those concerns? Because they run the show. Because now we have technology and we have a camera in the rig that's monitoring the driving with AI algorithms, even though supposedly there's not a camera watching me. It's not telling there is. And algorithm, and all of this comes down to a risk factor for the insurance corporations, right? Which ultimately goes back to, from what I've been told, is it all basically goes back to Lloyd's of London. At the end of the day. And so Lloyd's of London more or less decides how the entire industry of truck driving is conducted in the United States, whether people realize that or not. And then in the predatory, adversarial poker, incomplete game, metaphorical poker game where the company, maybe they are, maybe I can scope it out enough, maybe they are, maybe I can scope it out enough, and maybe, I can take advantage of the extra time to get this fucking thing backed in, right? I'm already strategizing and trying to figure out how to even get to the facility, because when I drive in there, I'm committing to entering into the property facing in a direction where there's no possibility of facing the other direction. Like, that's how tiny this is. There's nowhere to back up. Now, yeah, I can back up into the fucking street where people who want to be able to call the injury lawyer and get a settlement will happily try to take advantage of the situation, right? So I'm probably not going to back up into the street unless I have to. See? And so how come Benton is able to calculate all of this? Meanwhile, the guy who shows up with a lack of experience to the spiritual attackers in Connecticut who wave their arms around and want to just verbally tell the guy how to do it, well, that's who's going to end up crashing into somebody's personal vehicle or crashing into the side of the building. See? Which is what the insurance company claims to not want to do, but in reality is, what do they care? At the end of the day, they'll just either cancel or jack up the trucking company's insurance rates. And the company, if the company is going to survive this round of, and this is like the TV show Survivor, right? At some point, these companies are always getting voted off the fucking island. They're always getting voted off the island. So if the company I'm allowing to employ me as a contractor, if they want to make it through the next fucking whoever's getting voted off, they need somebody who ain't going to go back into anybody's building. Well, they found him. Except we can't let him know that if he finally just says, hey, man, y'all got to stop sending me to these places, and every time you give me a load, I'm just going to go immediately to Google satellite view, and when I see that it's too fucking small, I'm going to tell y'all, fuck you, right? Well, that's to the detriment of the system, because that is power to the worker, that's power to the people, right? And then it's like, well, wait a minute, because this load could go to a cross dock somewhere. I could be taking this to a dock somewhere where it could be unloaded, and then they could throw this onto a smaller truck. They could throw this load would absolutely fit on a straight truck. And it could be then backed into this facility, no fucking problem. Pretty much anybody can back this thing up with a straight truck. But trucking's not set up for that. And the brokers, in order to keep as much of the load, the cost of the load for themselves, they need somebody like me to go in there working for relative peanuts to back this thing up. And then my company needs to be able to find somebody who can back this thing up at his level of experience, right? Without crashing into the side of the building. There's plenty of drivers who will take the job and but they're going to crash into the side of the building at some point. And we know this because they've already metaphorically crashed into the side of the building, and we know this because they have a record where the insurance company says, oh, hell no. If you think you're going to pay for the whole company, X amount of dollars per month in insurance. You're crazy if you think this is the kind of driver you're going to employ. Absolutely not. No fucking way. So now we have, hey, go hire this homeless bozo off the street. Literally, that's irony, both literally and figuratively. Off the street, go hire Benton off the street because he's not going to crash into the side of the building. However, at some point, he's going to have 15,000. The longer he works for the company and his bank balance grows and grows and grows, at some point he's just going to say, fuck this, and quit. So they've got to keep me working there, right? It's their job to give me the least amount of money possible and to work me the hardest and to extract the greatest amount of value they can without me quitting. Because they can't necessarily just go get another one of me. But they don't ever want to tell me that. However, I'm intelligent, and there's nothing I need. Now, if I needed things, if I had mama at home and mouths to feed and all of this, it'd be completely different. Since I'm not desperate, I can just quit anytime I want. Now, will I be rehireable? Who knows? I have no fucking idea. As I had no idea would I be able to get a job this time. Yeah, if I wanted to go to the West Coast and be an ice road trucker and end up in the middle of Wyoming in 100-mile-an-hour winds and a blizzard this winter, yeah, of course I'm employable. I'll probably never not be employable on that to that extent, but I'm not doing that. Oh, Benton ain't about that life. I'm not doing ice road trucking in Wyoming in 100-mile-an-hour winds and a blizzard. We ain't doing that. Fuck off. If that was going to happen, that would have already happened. And so why isn't this allowed to be talked about? Because I can't be the only person as of... it's funny, I had the thought earlier that did I make sure to turn the heater to cold in the sleeper? I've heated up the entire sleeper, which I don't like to do because I have nutritional supplements back here that the quality of which can be degraded by heat. And I had the thought, and I thought, no, I'm pretty sure. And this is the hypervigilance, right? This is that thing that makes me so good in certain regards, so skilled. I thought I had a memory of turning it down, but I probably thought about turning it down and then went on to do other things and forgot. Instead of checking to make sure. So now we're in the sleeper and it's 85 degrees back here. Oh well, such is life. Or death, rather. And so, because it is such an adversarial realm, it's more or less taboo for people to even talk about this because, yeah, Benton, has access to certain intelligence, but I can't be the only person who understands all of this, who also drives a truck. Like, it's just, there's got to be other people who are aware of this. It's not, but then what's their incentive to talk about it, right? What do they get out of talking about it? They're probably going to get punished for talking about it. Most probably. So then now you're looking at a society where it can talk about honesty and integrity all at once. If it won't facilitate people being able to have open, honest, frank conversations within the context of so-called proper society, well, what are we even doing? Like, at that point, what's the point of contributing to society? Because this idea of contributing to society sort of implies that society is a thing worth contributing to. You know, I would say, well, where is the proof of that? Yeah, I understand that status quo, social contract, conformity to peer groups. Yeah, I get all of that. But, you know, where's the actual, how is that actually demonstrated? You know, how and where is that actually demonstrated? You know, it's not. Because it's not a thing. So, world of death, game of lies, let's all play pretend. World of death, game of lies, let's all play pretend. I'm 50 years old. Yeah. Why, again, not life, this protracted experience of death, you know, that's not a good death, the idea of an honorable death. That ain't honorable, man. That is not honorable. And so look at the word honorable, meaning if it's not honorable, why would Benton honor it? Well, because Benton is expected to honor it. Oh, okay, so now Benton has identified that dishonor is built into the system itself. Dishonor. Again, lack of honor. Oh, that's right. The inverted realm doesn't know what honor is, can't provide honor. It only understands what dishonor is, or lack of honor. And so there's the reward systems based not on honor. We'll call it honor, but it's actually dishonor. Right? Dishonor. And then, you know, people want to say, so what will immediately happen is when Benton makes a compelling enough case, it's like, okay, what's your solution? Because especially people who think they're right-wing or traditional family values Christians, they're not allowed to read the lefty playbook, which is Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals. Well, I've read Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals, and it plainly states, you know, communist tactics or collectivist tactics, as soon as the opposition, you know, is plausibly and creditably pointing out problems, especially if those problems can be blamed, instead of then having to own. Well, they say, what's your solution? I say, what are you talking about? I've already done it. Because, again, what's the context for solution and problem solving? Well, so removing context and muddying the waters, that question wants the person to just immediately go into a space of external problem solving. Well, until it's demonstrated to me that I have the power to do external level problem solving, meaning I've been given the authority and deputized by society. It's like, okay, now I'm the head of an organization. I've been given resources. I get to hire a team of individuals. We're going to hire a third party to go out there and do studies and report data to us, and over a time frame, we're going to then have meetings, and eventually we're going to offer our solutions to the power structure. And then the power structure is going to decide if the organization I've then created and head up, they're going to say, okay, go ahead and do the solution, or they're going to say, well, actually, we're going to consider other pick it apart. Until it's proven to me through contracts and law and structure that I'm going to be given all of the resources to potentially succeed, I would have to be a fool to engage in such folly. So yes, my solution I've already discovered and applied within the context of my power and my ability to access meaning, which is only ever within myself until proven otherwise. So yes, I've already solved all of that within myself, where my power lies on behalf of me, in service of me, for my own purposes. I've already done all that. So the solution can never be, well, Benton, you need to do better. What are you talking about? I've already done that. So, respectfully, fuck you, system, because I've already done the damn thing. Fuck you. Fuck you, system. And the reality is, people accept all of that because they don't have what it takes to either understand the dynamics or to boldly and courageously say, well, no, I will not go along with all of that. Which is to treat one's blessing as if it were a curse, which does what? That's the entire goal of antithesis. That's the reason for the existence of this world of death and game of lies in the first place. So, in the context of a spiritual war, with an acknowledgement of Benton as spiritual, performing as spiritual warrior genius, I don't have the luxury, from the perspective of going along with all of that to get along. Not on the table. It's off the table. Behave that way. Can't do it. Because if Benton is performing in the context of, have you considered my servant Job, and Benton is behaving in a way that is the servant being considered, Job didn't have those. He simply did not have those alternatives. First, the warrior places themselves beyond the possibility of defeat psychologically. It's not within, psychologically, it's not within the realm of possibility for Benton to be spiritually defeated. Because if Benton is capable of being spiritually defeated, he's not what he purported himself to be, or he's not, in fact, what he knows himself to be. And that's to have you considered my servant Job, because if it turns out he's not what we've known him to be up to this point, well, fuck him. We don't need him anyway. He doesn't need to be judged. He's already proven himself to be beyond redemption. And that's the inverse, the idea of a judgment at the end of the experience or at the end of the performance. No, that's not it. It's that the being, if they don't prove themselves to be worthy of redemption or to manifest in a redeemable fashion, then guess what? They were never redeemable in the first place, and then who cares? That is the separating of the wheat from the tares. So now we know, oh, look, that's a pile of tares over there. Cast it into the flames of fire. Burn it off. Well, it separates itself through its own performance. See? And old Benton knows that, and old Benton loves a challenge, and old Benton is going to show and prove what he is. And if he gets to the end of trying his best and can't prove it and show it, then I will, if there's a judgment like the Bible says, I will happily stand before my Maker and say, well, I guess I never was that thing, Your Honor, or Your Highness, or whatever the fuck. I guess I never was that thing. So, do with me as you will. All right? That's honorable. That's honorable. So, but if you think faking the funk is ever going to carry the day, you're sadly mistaken. You're sadly mistaken if you ever think faking the funk is going to carry the day. But, oh, it's a great way to go along to get along in this world. Oh, yeah, this world loves the faking of the funk. It loves it when you, the royal you, when an individual fakes the funk. This realm loves that shit. Are you crazy? Because now the individual, it's not on the individual to do better. Now the system gets to pat the individual on its pretty little head and say, there, it's not your fault. You know, you can't possibly be expected to pull yourself up by your internal bootstraps, mind, body, and spirit. That's just asking too much, little performer, in the context of the little performance. You're just a weak little human. You're just a born sinner, right? Right? Imagine the nutsack, the balls, the courage to say, I am that one. Do your worst, realm. Do your worst, demons, and beat my chest and say, bring it, bitch. That's the spirit of what I am. Bring it, bitch. And if I am defeated by this realm, I will congratulate the adversary because I will know that the adversary's accomplished something. That's the level of chest beating old Benton's going to do. You beat me and you've done something, right? That's why Benton was always never had a problem was never a sore loser, because he made himself into such a high level adversary. When Benton lost in competition, he wanted to congratulate the opposition because they just accomplished something, and that accomplishment must be honored. Otherwise, when Benton wins, it's not worthy of recognizing. It's the same fucking thing. See, I got to put in my best effort. They got to earn this victory. If whatever that is victorious over what I am. Meanwhile, what I am will never know defeat, because it is the spirit of bring it, bitch. Bring it. Bring it. Let's go. Love it. Bring it. That's the spirit of what I am. Don't threaten old Benton with a good time. And again, have you considered my servant Job? Because to be that thing is to always be able to. That is the story of Job. That is the story of Job. And it's within the context of delusion. And yes, what people within a delusion, if you're going to talk about God the Father, you're going to talk about God the Son, and you're going to talk about the Holy Ghost, that's within the context of delusion. There is no Trinity outside of delusion, because outside of delusion, there's only one. All that exists is oneness outside of the context of delusion, from the perspective of a human speaking to you, right? Now, I'm not, in this limited form, right, saying, okay, we'll acknowledge the power. All right, we're back. Because the cell technology can't deal with going around the curve. It doesn't know how to handle the fact that the highway has a curve in it. So when Islam in the Quran says that, right, when it says God doesn't have a son, well, it's correct in a way, right? Now, within the context of delusion, it's debatable, certainly. But then again, as we know, all religion is man-made and therefore demonic, right? With this idea of Jesus of Nazareth, right? And this literal God the Father, God the Son, and then the Holy Ghost, that's not possible, folks. That is not possible. Only within the context of delusion. Only within the context of unreality, right? Is that possible? Meaning it ain't possible. Just like Benton ain't possible. You aren't possible. This world isn't possible in the context of what I am, one with the most super intelligent power, source, and force of love and creation, expansion, authority, right? Only via delusion based on the necessity of antithesis or inverse or opposite of proposition. Please don't kill the messenger. Because it has to be that way, because if it will that has to be assertion or proposition or thesis, and if there's thesis, there must be antithesis. So when people say what loving God would do all of these things, that's not the right question to ask. That's the wrong question. It's to accept that certain things are the way they must be, full stop. And that's just how it is. And it's always been that way, and it never won't be that way. And in fact, time only exists in delusion within the context of an indivisible force. Because, like I said, as noted in the Bible, Christ, when accused of, well, maybe he drives out these demons in the name of Beelzebub, he said, well, if hate drives out hate, then Satan's kingdom is divided against itself, and how can it stand? See? And it's also an acknowledgement of the kingdom of God, in order to be valid, has to be indivisible. If it can be divided or individuated, it can't be what it purports to be. Which is why, strictly speaking, it ain't possible to break off a little chunk of that force and have it come to this place and have a so-called human experience. That ain't possible, strictly speaking. Say, oh, he's calling himself God again. Well, that's what you say. However, air quotes, so-called God, what is meant by that? What is meant by that? See, I'm going to need the person asking the question to define what is God. What is God? That's why I refer to it as air quotes so-called. It's an acknowledgement that I either need a definition or I must define it. Otherwise, what's the context? What's the meaning? What's the application? And the realm says, no, just go ahead and muddy the waters. Come on in, the water's fine. Come on in, the water's fine. Don't you get it? $20. Well, I've been talking longer than 20 minutes. I don't know what YouTube's talking about. Did it end the stream and start another one? I don't know. Maybe. I don't know what it's doing. All right, I think it's time. Blueberries. Yay. Yay. I'm still here. We're having some thoughts. Having a lot of UTI symptoms, urinary tract infection. And so the inversion of modern medicine, with respect to what the body does, and modern medicine exists, as we know, in the context of vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions. It's based on medical coding and billing entirely. So part of the mind control and indoctrination is upon experiencing these symptoms. Well, what are symptoms? It's symptoms of not an illness, it's symptoms of a condition that the body is resolving. Damn. Can't even tell where the road is out here when it rains. It's just one lane. It's either two lanes or one lane. I can't tell. Looks like it's two. Now, it was unclear for a time. Anyway. So the individual is indoctrinated, and it's uncomfortable, right? Dis-ease. And so the being is taught, okay, well, business, the business transactions will address this. So it's not about medicine or health at that level. It becomes about money, profit, products, and services, right? Because that's what suits the system, which the system can never and will never give a flying fuck about whatever my level of discomfort may be. Meanwhile, I don't give a fuck about the discomfort. What I care about is eventually having or in fact having my various systems of the body operating as optimally as possible. And part of that is or a big component of that is undergoing various healing processes. And the healing process happens most of the time, in my experience, through what seems to be an illness. It's not illness, it's the body's healing process. Most likely it's the body's killing the things and then rebuilding, right? It's killing off whatever, viruses or bacteria, or it's making its own bacteria. It's doing all of these things, again, super intelligently. But then modern medicine turns it into a business. And then if the human takes the medicine or takes whatever, that mostly just makes the symptoms, more tolerable or less intolerable. Doesn't actually resolve the condition. Now, it might, if you look at antibiotics, would antibiotics kill whatever's causing these feelings of discomfort? Perhaps, but it's going to kill a whole bunch of other stuff too. And a lot of what it's going to also kill is actually things that I need for proper health. Funny how that works. So. Trying to find my water to rinse this sugar off my teeth. Man, I've been wanting to put more Rain-X on the windshield, and either have forgotten when I would have done it, or just was doing other things like resting, at other times. Just haven't been able to do it. Haven't made it happen. I'm paying the price right now. Rain-X, big fan. So yeah, and the further healing of the kidneys and the bladder and whatever else is involved in the urinary tract. You know, it's definitely an interesting process. Fortunately, I know, and again, none of this is medical advice, but I am able to speak to my own experience, at least. So, none of this is advice or recommendation. Certainly, Benton has no credentials whatsoever for medicine. Let's be clear. But yeah, it's good times. And so, going through these symptoms, and, part of me started to worry a little bit this morning, like, oh, what the fuck is this? But then now I'm feeling pretty good. I'm realizing, oh, well, actually, that was your kidneys are now probably in the process of, going to a higher level of function, a higher level of, it's restoration. We talk about healing, but we also talk about restoration, because part of this, sacrifice to Moloch and all of this, if you look at, as a young person, I had, one of the worst diets possible. So I've been damaging my organs my entire life, up until the last several years. So of course, there's going to be stages of healing and restoration. But if I don't know to view it properly, then the next thing you know, it's, oh, well, get to the doctor. Oh, here's the antibiotics, which it kills the so-called infection. But guess what? Given the proper circumstances, my body will kill the infection while keeping all of the beneficial things that it has already created. The antibiotics will kill the infection and a whole bunch of beneficial things. It's indiscriminate in that regard. Anti-life, right? Isn't that what biotic is? Anti-life. Anti-life. Take this anti-life medication. What? Huh? Say that again, please. Now I'm going 55 because I suspect this big rig behind me would be cruising at faster than 55, and I was just going to it's a passing zone, and I'm just assuming that he's going to go faster than me, but I don't know. Is he just letting some of these trucks have adaptive cruise control. Is he just letting me drive his truck, which is, I don't even care, but I just have trouble believing that if I wasn't here, he would be going 55 on this road in these conditions. I find it dubious because the speed limit is 75 and we have 2 lanes, actually 2 lanes in both directions, but an undivided highway. One slab of pavement with 4 lanes and a double yellow. Now he's starting to figure it out. So probably figure it out just enough to catch me by the end of the passing zone. Although at a certain point, it's 2 lanes in both directions, all the way to San Antonio. But I don't think we're quite there yet. Still 111 miles out. Yeah, now he's figured it out. Yeah, I'm probably going to go about 62, buddy, if you'll ever get around me. Instead of hanging back Oh, but Benton's hanging back, so there must be a reason to hang back. Yeah, I'm hanging back so you'll pass me. If you hang back because I'm hanging back, we can't. Neither one of us can go anywhere. This is what I mean by John Nash game theory optimal. Oh, okay. Well, in his defense, that's TMC, and they're amongst the slowest trucks on the road. So, fair enough. It makes a little more sense now. When I was with Snyder at 63 miles an hour, they were one of the few companies I could pass, assuming they were going the max speed. I think they went 62. Oklahoma's minimum speed is 60. Hypothetically, they wouldn't even be able to travel the turnpike. Stretching my shoulder. I managed to make a stop at Walmart yesterday en route, and kind of parked in where I'm not supposed to park, but I figured I'd run in and out as fast as possible. And, sometimes it's easier to ask forgiveness than seek forgiveness than to ask permission. I was technically in the fire lane, but I wasn't really blocking anything. So other than a line drawn on the pavement. Man. So I stocked up on my Mountain Valley spring water. I'm now spending like probably that's the alkaline water is assisting other dietary and supplement. It's all, as soon as it recognizes that it can deal with some of these conditions, that's what it does. The physician doesn't heal anything. The body does the healing, or the being, right, or the spirit of what I am does the healing. Doctors don't heal anything. That's just a fact. Now, in a context, they can deal with certain conditions in certain ways, but it's always contextual. This idea of curing cancer or whatever, it's like, well, the body can absolutely deal with cancer if it's given what it needs to create the right condition to defeat the cancer. And clearly, the vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions and medical coding and billing and the legal system and all of this, it does whatever it can to really individuals who come up with methods and systems for dealing with cancer to treat it, it's just simply not allowed. So the fact is, people wanted me to go to the doctor because they wanted the system to sign off on saying, okay, this is what Benton has medically. But what's the value of that? If Benton knows and understands and trusts that the body will take care of it given the right conditions, maybe I did have cancer, and maybe I don't now. Who knows? Does it matter? What do I care about? All I care about is if I had it, is it gone? Why do I need to know? Yes, you had that. You had it. Why? What's the benefit there? I don't give a fuck. Other than I guess I could say, oh, I beat cancer or whatever. I don't fucking know. Whatever it was pretty fucking rough. I know that. And, not that I'm completely 100%, but I probably within the last 2 to 3 months have started normally gaining weight again. This has been, I'm not good with time. I tend to exaggerate, I've realized, but it's been close to 4 straight years of not being able to maintain a proper body weight. Like physically unable to be at a normal body weight. And it's just within the last couple of months where I'm like, oh, okay, I do actually. Now I'm going to have to start thinking about, before it was just like if I was hungry and I knew a certain amount of food wouldn't make me sick, then I didn't have to even think about eating as long as I was eating the right type of foods. Now it's like, well, wait a minute. Yeah, I might be hungry, but if I keep having an extra bowl of fucking, fish and beans every night, it's like, well, at what point am I not going to be able to fit into my pants, That happens pretty fast. So it's just been with that in the last 2 to 3 months where I can tell that, I can more or less eat normally. I got down to close to 100 pounds, and then made it to 120 and stayed there for a long ass time. And sometimes I would gain a little weight, but then I'd end up losing it. It would kind of go up and down. And then I think I made it into right about 135. But then again, I was still gaining and losing. And I seem to have settled in. I don't think I'll go much below 140 unless I just, actually intentionally limit calories, which I may do at certain. And I'm still going to fast at some point. And I mean actual fasting, not intermittent fasting. Although I don't think I'll go past 72 hours because of it's just too much of a pain in the ass to have to restart the whole digestive system. 3 days is not enough for the whole digestive system to shut down. So meaning you just pretty much go back to your normal diet. But if I don't eat for 12 days, I can't just go right back to eating. It doesn't work that way. And I've gone 12 days without eating food before. I also did 17 days on the Master Cleanse. And I really don't recommend things. So just, I've always been the type of person that kind of just likes to do stuff like that. I've been accused of being a hypochondriac, of course, but my understanding of hypochondria is people that are always going to the doctor and always saying they're sick. Anybody that's ever known me, I'm the type of person, if you hear me say that I'm coming down with something or I'm sick, that means I'm like actually fucking sick. Because I tend to just slough off things that other people consider illnesses. And historically. And in fact was quite ill for many years, and just, the old stereotype of men just ignoring things as long as possible. Well, yeah, I've got a bit of that in me, for sure. I've had digestive problems for many years, and just sort of was like, oh well, just kind of accept it as normal. And then tricking myself into thinking out, and I was less unhealthy than the rest of the populace, but then that doesn't mean that my body was healthy, overall. And purposefully overeating for years to put on muscle mass was not great for the organs, certainly. in my case. And I firmly believe that anybody can really take ownership of their physical health, and there's a lot of manipulation that can be done. But what I found is, because in the past I did used to give advice, and I realized eventually it was ridiculous, especially because sometimes people would take the advice. That's about the worst case scenarios if somebody actually, because really they have to figure out what their body responds to. It's always situational, and what's good for one, and the same substance in one circumstance could be beneficial, and then it can actually be a detriment at a certain point. And sort of knowing how to maneuver through all of that, and then taking a lot of supplements. What I found to be the key to that is, at some point, go off of almost all of it, and then see, where's the body at after that. Because really, a lot of this stuff, I've found the only way to really tell if it's working the way it's intended to or supposed to is to take it for a time and then stop taking it. And if you can't tell the difference, well, then you don't need to take it anymore, or maybe it really wasn't doing anything in the first place. And certain things I've found to just be more or less necessary, like vitamin D3. I do good on the atomic iodine or nation iodine. But that's a whole thing. I mean, anybody that's going to fuck with that, I would definitely recommend research that extensively, because that ain't necessarily to be fucked with right there. It can be very powerful. It works with the parts of the body that processes all of these fluorine, bromine, chlorine, all these various halogens. And so one of the effects of iodine, nation iodine, it will generally cause people to begin to excrete those substances through the urine. But then, again, the individual is going to really need to understand, well, what are the potential consequences? Because let's say that whatever is meant when people talk about decalcifying the pineal gland, and I'm not even saying that is a thing or it's not a thing. I'm saying whatever that is supposed to mean. Well, if that's a real thing, then psychologically, is the being, even mentally and psychologically, do they have the foundation to even deal with such a thing? Because in my experience, for me personally, years ago, that was quite an abrupt, disorienting change, was when I started taking atomic iodine. Because if that does in some way help expand consciousness, the idea of the third eye and all of this being connected to the pineal gland, and there's no free lunches in nature. You better be prepared for whatever that is. Best be prepared. And I don't know that I was, but up to the challenge, certainly. Then you get into, thyroid, of course, with the hormones and everything, with iodine. Here's burn it. Count of burn it. Come on, silly human. What are you doing back there? You're being silly. You're being silly, human. Now we got owner-operator wanting to follow me. Why are you wanting to follow me, owner-operator? You know I'm already going slow as fuck. It's a bit curious. He might work for a company. That's some kind of specialized. I don't even know what that is. Some kind of roll-off dump truck looking thing, but with the day cab built into it, or built on a full-size tractor chassis, I guess would be the way to say it. Yeah, when I went into truck driving, one thing I was not prepared for is the number of people who will happily follow a slow big rig all the way through town, and it's 2 lanes, and they can easily pass. It's 2 lanes in each direction. They can easily just pass at any time. It's a lot of people will do that. Way more than you might think. When the conditions get bad, visibility gets poor. It's been foggy at times. It's been pouring rain at times. It's been wet the whole time. It's like, I'm not fighting traffic. Now, if it's all interstate and, it's that can be a little bit different, but depending. But yeah, this is, they can have it. Let them have it. Let me see where my battery's at. Like I said, I got on the wrong phone, so like a bozo. Yeah, we're holding up all right. It's about time for some apricots. When 30 and a 50, I got 2 cars right on my ass. Wide open lane to my left. And people will say, oh, well, they're going to turn. Well, yeah, I mean, everybody's going to turn at some point. It's not happened. It's been back there for quite a while. So they already had plenty of time to go around me. So I don't know what this is, the relevance of this. They're going to turn. They're on their phones, and let's just call it what it is. and their brains can't. They know where they are in relation to where they're going to turn, so they can't engage the part of their brain that can do all those calculations and say, based on the speed of that vehicle and the distance before I'm going to make my turn in a few minutes, I need to just go ahead and pass this big rig. They can't make all of those calculations and simultaneously be on their phone. So they're choosing to just go on autopilot and be on their phone. That's what they're choosing to do. And then most of the time, you don't have a big rig going 30 in a 50. Most of the time. So it's, you know, their pattern recognition and their autopilot, it can't account for that. Meanwhile, I'm just waiting for them to pass me so I can speed up. Because I know if I speed up now, they're just going to stay behind me. And now I'm driving. It's pretty soon it's me driving, leading a procession of 7 vehicles, you know, leading them to the promised land. It's like, why should I drive their cars? Doesn't even make sense. I'm getting paid to drive these two, this combination here. I'm not getting paid to drive this and their cars. Anyway, I guess I'm out. Got about 93 miles to the delivery. I'm sure I could keep yapping, but thanks for watching.